Many social media creators utilizing AI look at unrestricted AI image generators, and they basically see pure creative freedom. But at a structural level, that's not actually the driver here. This looks like a massive opportunity for independent artists, but it's really a massive redistribution of leverage. And honestly, it's on a direct collision course with financial reality.
Yeah, because on the surface, an open ecosystem like this feels infinitely scalable. But it isn't. I mean, not in the way people think it is when they first sign up. We have actually tried something similar, and the bottleneck is rarely the technology itself.
Today, we are looking at Mage.space. If you are a creator or, a developer, you have likely encountered this platform, or at least the community around it, for sure. It is a highly capable browser-based AI platform that built its initial reputation on having essentially no content restrictions. And we've been testing it out extensively.
Yeah, they actually invited us to test the $200 a month max plan for free, just to give our honest opinion. So today's video is a sponsored one, and we want to thank Mage.space for the opportunity.
Right, so we have been running that alongside a pretty massive stack of research. We are pulling from technical documentation, platform comparisons, looking at competitors like Zen Creator and Pixel Bunny, community Reddit threads, and a very detailed investigative report from 404 Media.
And we aren't just looking at the user interface today. We are breaking down the mechanics, the incentives, and the systemic consequences of an AI platform built for power users.
Exactly. We simply map out why it works, why it scales, and ultimately where the structural load causes the entire system to crack.
Because it does crack.
It absolutely does. So when you look at the marketing for Mage.space, the messaging heavily leans on the phrase unlimited AI. But to actually understand the platform, we have to bypass that surface-level marketing and look at the actual anatomy of control they are offering you. If you look at mainstream AI platforms like Midjourney or DALL-E, they basically function like a point-and-shoot camera.
Yeah, they are engineered for the broadest possible consumer base.
Exactly. You type a vague sentence, and that's why the system's hidden filters and prompt enhancers do the heavy lifting to just, hand you a visually pleasing, highly predictable output.
It's like riding a train. You get where you're going safely, but you can't really steer. What Mage.space caters to is a fundamentally different demographic. It is built for the technical user who views that point-and-shoot approach as a limitation. They want granular, almost obsessive control over the entire generation pipeline. I mean, they don't want the platform deciding the composition of the lighting for them.
And the mechanism they use to hand over that control is kind of staggering when you look at the raw numbers. The sources we have been looking at show that Mage offers over 160 checkpoints.
A checkpoint is essentially the AI's core brain. It is the base model cell, like Stable Diffusion, XL, Flux, or Quinn.
It dictates the foundational understanding of the world.
It determines if the baseline reality of the image is going to be photorealistic or illustrative, or maybe a specific anime style. But an AI brain alone isn't enough for these power users. So Mage layers on over 30,000 LoRAs.
That is low-rank adaptations.
Yes. If the checkpoint is the brain, the LoRAs are the highly specialized skill sets you download into that brain. You aren't just asking for a cyberpunk city, you are layering one LoRA to force a specific 1990s anime aesthetic. Maybe another LoRA to dictate the exact brand of tactical clothing a character is wearing. And a third LoRA to replicate the specific lighting artifacts of a disposable Kodak camera.
And then at the very end of that pipeline, you apply VAEs, which are variational autoencoders.
The VAE is a critical piece of the mechanism that often just gets overlooked. Because when an AI generates an image, especially when you are forcing it through multiple complex LoRAs, the math can get pretty messy. The colors might look washed out, the contrast might break, or the finer details just blur into static.
The VAE acts as a decoder at the very end of the process. It takes that latent mathematical data and translates it back into crisp, color-accurate pixels. So you aren't just typing a text prompt anymore. It's like you are operating a massive, unpatched, modular synthesizer. You are adjusting the generation steps, tweaking the guidance scale to dictate how strictly the AI follows your text versus its own imagination.
Using negative prompts.
Yeah, using negative prompts to tell it exactly what not to do. And using ControlNet to force the AI to adhere to exact structural wireframes.
I think the issue is actually, no, it's deeper than that. It's really a question of utility versus friction.
What do you mean?
Well, I have to wonder at what point this level of control stops being a tool and starts becoming a trap. We've seen this play out with smaller YouTube channels we consult for. They discover these open source tools, and suddenly they're spending 40 hours a week tweaking LoRa weights and adjusting generation steps instead of actually publishing content. So I'd argue, does a library of 30,000 interchangeable parts actually serve a production workflow? Or does it just create massive analysis paralysis?
That is a completely legitimate strategic trade-off. Mage isn't trying to serve the average creator who just needs a quick thumbnail. It is serving the edge cases. And the cost of offering that raw, unmitigated control is the complete lack of built-in conveniences. When we look at the comparison sources, specifically stacking Mage against a platform like Zen Creator, I mean, the philosophy is night and day.
Completely different. Zen Creator is engineered specifically for social media pipelines.
It has built-in face consistency tools, native lip syncing capabilities, one-click export presets optimized for Instagram Reels or TikTok.
And Mage has absolutely none of that. It is just the raw engine block. If you want face consistency across 10 different generations on Mage, you have to manually figure out the precise mathematical combination of checkpoints, LoRAs, and ControlNet to force the system to keep the character's facial geometry stable.
Yeah, which is a massive time sink if you are using it for that purpose. But that raw engine approach reveals a very interesting false signal in their growth model.
The free tier.
Exactly. On the surface, Mage feels like a playground of unlimited scale, primarily because they heavily promote an unlimited free tier. Thousands of users flock to the site daily because the promise of unlimited free access to models like Stable Diffusion XL is just, the ultimate hook.
It looks like an incredible opportunity for a creator operating with zero budget.
But the reality of the system is compute arbitrage. Right. The free tier is an illusion of scale. Mechanically, the platform allows you to click the Generate button an infinite number of times without hitting a hard cap or a watermark, but you are operating on the lowest possible GPU priority.
You are basically paying with your time.
Exactly. You are sitting in a queue.
The platform is buying massive amounts of bulk compute power. The paying users get the priority lanes, and the free users fill the idle time between those priority generations. If you want actual utility for a professional workflow, so features like 4K upscaling, access to video generation models like WAN or VO, or simply the ability to bypass that queue so you aren't waiting 3 minutes per image, you are forced into the paid tiers.
And those tiers escalate aggressively. It starts at $10 a month for the basic plan, which just kind of gets you in the door. It jumps to $30 for Pro, $60 for Pro Plus, all the way up to the max plan we are testing at $200 a month.
Yeah, and they also sell one-off gems.
Right, which is a microtransaction system allowing you to purchase temporary access to specific high-end features without upgrading your entire monthly subscription.
The incentive structure here is fascinating, but it highlights a massive vulnerability. I mean, they are using the free tier as a massive top-of-funnel magnet, brings in a staggering amount of traffic. But the platform's infrastructure often struggles to support the actual paying users who are funding the entire compute operation.
There is a highly specific incident we found documented in the community Reddit threads that perfectly illustrates this failure point. A user paid for a Pro subscription sitting in that $15 to $30 range depending on their billing cycle. They logged in, generated exactly 2 images. The total compute time was 9 seconds, and the platform immediately threw up a prompt telling them they had exhausted their resources and needed to upgrade to a higher tier.
A hard paywall after 9 seconds of compute on a premium tier. That's rough.
And it gets worse. When the user reached out to customer support to resolve what was obviously a bug or, a miscalculation in their account limits, they were met with absolute silence. Nothing. Nothing on the dedicated support email at Mage.space, nothing from the moderators in the Mage Discord community, just a complete void.
We have to look at the corporate evolution of the company to understand why that actually happens. The early narrative, and the idea that still persists in a lot of the community, is that Mage is just two guys running servers in a closet. It was founded by two former Airbnb engineers, Gregory Hunkins handling the technical CTO duties, and Roy Lee as the CEO. And in the early days, they were brilliant at scaling the technical architecture to handle massive viral peaks in interest.
But the company is no longer just two guys in a room. They have raised significant venture capital. They maintain a broader staff now, specifically to manage their data engineering and AI image generation services. They are a professional AI platform.
Yeah, but even with venture capital and an expanded team, the strategic trade-off of running an AI infrastructure company is that compute scales infinitely faster than human operations. You can write an algorithm to dynamically allocate server loads across 10,000 users in a millisecond. You cannot algorithmically automate the dispute resolution of a frustrated creator who just lost $30 and is demanding an explanation. The human layer, so the billing support, the customer service, the community management, it always snaps first under the weight of hypergrowth.
And that fragility in the support structure brings us to the most volatile element of Mage's entire ecosystem, the feature that basically defined their market position, and the one that created a systemic crisis for the company.
The uncensored nature of the platform.
Exactly. And we need to reframe this concept of uncensored AI, because the mainstream narrative is usually highly reductive.
Yeah. People hear uncensored and immediately assume it exclusively means explicit or adult content. Right. But I would argue that is not the primary driver for many of these power users. Creators seek out platforms like Mage because heavy-handed corporate safety filters often block entirely legitimate artistic intent.
For sure. If you are a concept artist doing anatomical muscle studies, or a game developer trying to generate visceral body horror concepts, or simply working in a dark fantasy aesthetic, mainstream platforms will frequently flag your prompts as policy violations and just shut down your generation. So Mage's initial value proposition was that it respected the native capabilities of the underlying open source model. If the model knew how to draw it, Mage would let you generate it. It gave you the raw, unfiltered output.
But that freedom introduces a pretty severe second-order effect at scale. When you build a platform that allows uncensored generation, but your business model relies on processing millions of dollars in monthly subscription revenue, you are immediately tethered to traditional, highly regulated financial networks.
You are relying on payment processors like Stripe to physically move the money from the user's bank account to your server hosting providers.
And Stripe does not care about your philosophical stance on artistic freedom or open source software. They care about their own risk models and their own terms of service.
This tension is exactly what triggered the crisis detailed in the 404 Media investigative report. Now, just to look at the facts of that investigation impartially, based strictly on the source material, journalists actively investigated the Mage platform and found that a segment of the user base was exploiting the uncensored tools.
They were using those 30,000 LoRAs and highly specific checkpoints to generate non-consensual deepfake pornography of real celebrities.
The critical mechanical link the 404 Media investigation highlighted wasn't just that the content existed, it was the financial pipeline. The journalist pointed out that Stripe, as the payment processor for Mage.space, was actively facilitating the premium subscriptions that funded the compute power used for this activity.
Once that investigation was published, making the link between the generated content and the financial processor completely public, the collision course with reality happened almost overnight.
Mage.space had to implement severe immediate restriction across the platform.
They were kind of forced into a corner. When a massive payment processor like Stripe is implicated in a media investigation regarding non-consensual content, the platform using their API does not have leverage.
No, the infrastructure providers hold all the cards. They dictate the rules of engagement. The mechanical fallout on the platform was instant. If a user tries to generate that specific kind of content now, they hit a hard-coded wall.
The exact message the system spits out is, "This request was denied due to its high likelihood for abuse and to protect our community. Non-consensual imagery with celebrity names is not allowed on Mage."
The company also went into their official Discord and completely purged the NSFW-related channels, deleting the history, and publicly announced they were implementing active detection technology to scan prompts.
Which creates a fascinating contradiction regarding the founder's technical defense. When confronted with the difficulty of moderating the platform, Roy Lee and Gregory Hunkins argued that policing AI at a granular level is incredibly difficult because language is entirely malleable.
They pointed out that an AI is essentially a black box that learns to read between the lines of a prompt.
Exactly. Users don't have to type explicit words to get an explicit result. They can use metaphors, indirect descriptions, or specific combinations of obscure LoRAs that technically bypass text filters but visually output prohibited content.
Right. So the founders were essentially pointing out the fundamental flaw in keyword moderation. How do you reliably police an infinite permutation of text prompts without completely crippling the platform's utility?
You can't. I mean, not with 100% accuracy. Yeah. And that reality clashed violently with the expectations of their core community. The backlash we read through in the Discord logs was fierce. It really was. These were power users who felt fundamentally blindsided. They had invested their time, and in many cases their money, into a service that aggressively marketed itself as the ultimate bastion of creative freedom. In a matter of days, it was heavily restricted.
One user in the Discord bluntly summed up the prevailing mood of the community, posting, "Time to try a new hobby. Look into aquariums or some shit."
Yeah, it's a funny quote, but it perfectly captures the deep fatigue creators feel when the tools they rely on fundamentally change their rules overnight.
It exposes the ultimate contradiction in this specific era of the tech industry. You cannot build a mass-market, venture-backed business running on massive cloud compute infrastructure processed by mainstream financial networks like Stripe that operates entirely outside the boundaries of corporate content moderation.
It is mathematically, legally, and financially impossible at scale.
So what does this actually mean for you, watching this video, if we have been able to keep you until now? Whether you are a concept artist spending hours tweaking the guidance scale on a Flux model, or a studio director deciding where to invest your $200 a month for a Max subscription, you need to understand the systemic reality of the tools you are using.
You are participating in a highly unstable ecosystem.
Exactly. You are building your entire creative workflow on a fault line. You might have found the perfect combination of LoRAs and checkpoints to achieve your exact aesthetic, but that pipeline is incredibly fragile.
Because the rules of the platform you rely on can change tomorrow, and it won't be because the underlying AI model suddenly forgot how to generate the image. No, it will be because an investigative article drops, or a payment processor quietly updates their acceptable use policy. And a venture-backed startup has to instantly implement a hard filter to keep their merchant accounts from being frozen.
The leverage you thought you had, that raw, modular, creative control, you don't own it. It is entirely rented.
If we step back and look at the trajectory of this technology, if these AI models continue to scale in power, and companies can deploy them to millions of users while relying on external, heavily regulated financial and server infrastructure, who actually captures the value and who truly holds the power? Is it the creators meticulously crafting the prompts? Is it the developers building the platforms? Or is it the invisible payment networks and server hosts that can pull the plug on the entire ecosystem in an instant?